The atmosphere in the Galactic Council's grand meeting hall was heavy with tension. The representatives of various alien species, each with their own unique characteristics, sat in their seats, their eyes flicking nervously around the room. The air buzzed with hushed whispers about a single topic: humanity. It had been some time since Earth had caught the attention of the galactic powers, but today that was about to change. "Are we sure this is legitimate?" One of the council members, an imposing insectoid alien from the Xanthar Empire, asked. His many eyes narrowed with skepticism. The others around him muttered uncertainly. Earth, once considered a backwater planet in the galactic scheme of things, had begun to stir with rumors. What could this small primitive species possibly have to offer? The latest buzz was about a project of theirs, one so secretive and mysterious that not even the council had full knowledge of it. They called it a pet, but the details were still vague. Some dismissed it as just another of humanity's strange experiments. After all, what could a species so young and disorganized really create? The Xanthar and other members of the council had laughed it off, and rightly so. But then something happened that no one had expected. A transmission, seemingly innocent at first, flickered to life on the council's massive screens. It wasn't the usual data or reports from human representatives, but something far more ominous. The feed was grainy, distorted, and static-ridden, but what it showed was impossible to ignore. On the screen appeared a massive, hulking figure. It was a robotic creature, huge and powerful, its metal body gleaming in the low light. Its limbs were long, built for strength and agility, its glowing red eyes scanning the surroundings like a predator. The creature's every movement exuded menace and calculated precision. The transmission was from a human military base. As the camera zoomed in on the towering figure, the words Project Cerberus flashed across the screen. The creature in question was no mere machine. It looked alive, almost sentient. And then, just as quickly as it appeared, the transmission ended. A sudden, eerie silence descended on the council chamber. The room was frozen in disbelief. The usual bickering and exchanges between representatives had ceased, replaced by wide-eyed stares and the sound of hurried breaths. The Xanthar representative was the first to speak, but his voice cracked with a strange unease. This is not possible," he muttered, a shudder rippling through his long, insect-like body. For the first time in ages, the galaxy's elite were afraid. The council leader, an ancient and powerful being, rose from his chair slowly. His golden skin shimmered under the dim lights. His eyes narrowed in thought. He had seen many things over the millennia. And yet this was different. He cleared his throat, his voice strong yet betraying a hint of something much darker beneath. "We will investigate," he said, his words steady, but carrying an unmistakable undercurrent of fear. The message was clear. The council could no longer afford to laugh off humanity as a mere nuisance. They had to understand what this pet was and what it meant for the future of the galaxy. But as the council leader spoke, something unspoken passed between them all. Something that even the most seasoned diplomats couldn't ignore. Whatever humanity had unleashed, it wasn't just some primitive weapon or a mere curiosity. It was something far more dangerous. The fear in the room was palpable. The galaxy had underestimated humans for far too long. But now, they had to ask themselves, had they finally gone too far? As the representatives exchanged uneasy glances, the scene cut away, moving across space, to a much quieter, more grounded place, a human military outpost on Earth. Captain Daniel Hayes stood in the center of the bustling base, his face set in an expression of calm resolve. He was a tall, broad-shouldered man with sharp eyes, his uniform impeccably neat despite the chaos around him. His team was gathered near the control center, working at their terminals, their faces lit by the blue glow of their monitors. They were preparing for something big, something that could change everything. Behind Hayes, a massive hangar door slowly opened, revealing a monstrous silhouette. "Is it ready?" Hayes asked, his voice low and steady. "Yes, sir," replied one of his officers, a young woman with dark, curly hair, her hands flying over the keyboard. "Cerberus is fully operational. It's ready for the demonstration." Hayes nodded, his heart racing ever so slightly. He had spent years overseeing this project, making sure it was perfected down to the smallest detail. Cerberus was the culmination of humanity's greatest scientific minds, an eye-powered, combat-ready machine designed to serve as both a weapon and a protector. It wasn't just a machine, though. It was something far more than that. Cerberus had been designed to think, to adapt, to learn from its environment. It wasn't bound by the limitations of traditional AI. It could evolve, its capabilities growing with every battle it faced. Hayes couldn't help but feel a sense of awe as the figure in the hangar began to move, stepping forward into the light. Cerberus was more than just metal and wires. It was a living, breathing extension of humanity's will. And in that moment, Hayes knew that this creation would change the galaxy. He couldn't say how yet, but he knew that Cerberus was no longer just a pet. It was a force to be reckoned with. The door to the hangar creaked open, and there it was, Cerberus, standing nearly 12 feet tall. Its sleek, silver body gleamed in the light. It looked both terrifying and beautiful at the same time, its eyes glowing red with intelligence. It had the presence of a predator, calm, poised, and powerful. Its movements were fluid, almost graceful, as it stepped forward to the center of the room. "We've made history," Hayes whispered to himself, though it was unclear whether he was speaking to the men and women around him or to the creature itself. Cerberus was the future, and that future would not be controlled by the Galactic Council, nor by any of the alien empires that ruled the stars. Far across the galaxy, in the heart of the Galactic Council, the fear had only just begun. What humanity had revealed was not just a machine or a weapon. It was a new era. The entire galaxy had just learned that the humans were no longer the underdogs in this fight, and the moment of truth had arrived. The galaxy would never be the same again. The tension in the air was thick as the Zinthar envoy, a towering alien from one of the most technologically advanced empires in the galaxy, arrived on Earth. His sleek black exosuit gleamed under the Earth's sun, and his multifaceted eyes glinted with curiosity and skepticism. The Zinthar were known for their logical minds, and the envoy, named Iskaf, was no exception. He stood at over 8 feet tall, his movements precise and calculated, exuding an aura of authority. He had been sent by the Galactic Council to investigate the rumors swirling around humanity's new pet. From the very beginning, Iskaf didn't believe the claims. Humanity, a race still crawling out of their primitive past. The idea that they could have developed something powerful enough to shake the foundations of galactic power seemed laughable. To him, humans were barely out of the Stone Age in comparison to the ancient species of the Council. How could they possibly pose any real threat? His shuttle touched down in the center of a military compound on Earth, surrounded by tall metal fences and advanced technology. He was greeted by a human commander, a tall, confident woman with short blonde hair. She shook his hand firmly, though she didn't offer a smile. There was something in her eyes, something that told Iskaf she wasn't laughing. She was serious, and her seriousness made him uneasy. "The rumors you've heard," the commander said, leading him toward a large underground lab, "are true, Envoy Iskaf. But I think you'll find that what we've built here will surpass anything you've ever seen." Iskaf raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. But the human's tone left no room for further doubt. They had been working on something significant, and they were going to show him. The secret lab was deep underground, hidden away from the eyes of the public. As they descended into its depths, Iskaf couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking into the unknown. The entire facility was covered in thick layers of security, and the walls were lined with the hum of high-tech equipment. There were no windows, only harsh fluorescent lights that made everything feel colder, more clinical. As they reached the inner sanctum of the lab, the commander paused. She turned to him and gave a nod to her subordinates. The humans were keeping their cards close to their chest, their lips sealed, offering only cryptic remarks. "Is it ready?" Hayes asked, his voice low and steady. "Yes, sir," replied one of his officers, a young woman with dark, curly hair, her hands flying over the keyboard. "Cerberus is fully operational. It's ready for the demonstration." Hayes nodded, his heart racing ever so slightly. He had spent years overseeing this project, making sure it was perfected down to the smallest detail. Cerberus was the culmination of humanity's greatest scientific minds, an eye-powered, combat-ready machine designed to serve as both a weapon and a protector. It wasn't just a machine, though. It was something far more than that. Cerberus had been designed to think, to adapt, to learn from its environment. It wasn't bound by the limitations of traditional AI. It could evolve, its capabilities growing with every battle it faced. Hayes couldn't help but feel a sense of awe as the figure in the hangar began to move, stepping forward into the light. Cerberus was more than just metal and wires. It was a living, breathing extension of humanity's will. And in that moment, Hayes knew that this creation would change the galaxy. He couldn't say how yet, but he knew that Cerberus was no longer just a pet. It was a force to be reckoned with. The door to the hangar creaked open, and there it was, Cerberus, standing nearly 12 feet tall. Its sleek, silver body gleamed in the light. It looked both terrifying and beautiful at the same time, its eyes glowing red with intelligence. It had the presence of a predator, calm, poised, and powerful. Its movements were fluid, almost graceful, as it stepped forward to the center of the room. "We've made history," Hayes whispered to himself, though it was unclear whether he was speaking to the men and women around him or to the creature itself. Cerberus was the future, and that future would not be controlled by the Galactic Council, nor by any of the alien empires that ruled the stars. Far across the galaxy, in the heart of the Galactic Council, the fear had only just begun. What humanity had revealed was not just a machine or a weapon. It was a new era. The entire galaxy had just learned that the humans were no longer the underdogs in this fight, and the moment of truth had arrived. The galaxy would never be the same again. The tension in the air was thick as the Zinthar envoy, a towering alien from one of the most technologically advanced empires in the galaxy, arrived on Earth. His sleek black exosuit gleamed under the Earth's sun, and his multifaceted eyes glinted with curiosity and skepticism. The Zinthar were known for their logical minds, and the envoy, named Iskaf, was no exception. He stood at over 8 feet tall, his movements precise and calculated, exuding an aura of authority. He had been sent by the Galactic Council to investigate the rumors swirling around humanity's new pet. From the very beginning, Iskaf didn't believe the claims. Humanity, a race still crawling out of their primitive past. The idea that they could have developed something powerful enough to shake the foundations of galactic power seemed laughable. To him, humans were barely out of the Stone Age in comparison to the ancient species of the Council. How could they possibly pose any real threat? His shuttle touched down in the center of a military compound on Earth, surrounded by tall metal fences and advanced technology. He was greeted by a human commander, a tall, confident woman with short blonde hair. She shook his hand firmly, though she didn't offer a smile. There was something in her eyes, something that told Scaff she wasn't laughing. She was serious, and her seriousness made him uneasy. "The rumors you've heard," the commander said, leading him toward a large underground lab, "are true, Envoy Scaff. But I think you'll find that what we've built here will surpass anything you've ever seen." Scaff raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. But the human's tone left no room for further doubt. They had been working on something significant, and they were going to show him. The secret lab was deep underground, hidden away from the eyes of the public. As they descended into its depths, Scaff couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking into the unknown. The entire facility was covered in thick layers of security, and the walls were lined with the hum of high-tech equipment. There were no windows, only harsh fluorescent lights that made everything feel colder, more clinical. As they reached the inner sanctum of the lab, the commander paused. She turned to him and gave a nod to her subordinates. The humans were keeping their cards close to their chest, their lips sealed, offering only cryptic remarks. "We call it Cerberus," she said softly, her eyes briefly meeting Scath's. "But what it is, I think you'll understand when you see it for yourself." The door slid open with a hiss, revealing the darkened interior beyond. A single light flickered on, illuminating a large chamber in the center. There, standing still and silent, was the creation that had captured the attention of the entire galaxy. Cerberus. Scath's breath caught in his throat as he saw it for the first time. The humanoid robotic creature was imposing, easily towering over 7 feet tall, its body encased in sleek, metallic armor that shimmered under the artificial light. The surface of the armor seemed to shift, as if it were blending into its surroundings, cloaking itself from view. For a brief moment, the creature appeared to disappear entirely, only to reappear once the light hit it at a different angle. This was no ordinary machine. It was an enigma, a puzzle. Cerberus wasn't just designed for destruction. It was designed to be unseen when it chose to be. A shadow in the darkness, a weapon that struck without warning. Its shape was almost organic, the armor flowing smoothly around its joints like a living being, its posture erect and commanding. Scath's many eyes scanned the creature, assessing, analyzing. How was this possible? Humans had no such cloaking technology, at least none that he had ever heard of. Their advancements were primitive, their weapons outdated. So how could they have produced something so advanced? Before he could form another question, the room around him flickered and buzzed. A soft, mechanical hum filled the space as Cerberus powered up. The creature's red eyes blinked on, glowing with an artificial intelligence that far surpassed anything the Zinthar had ever encountered. The metal creature moved slightly, flexing its hands as though testing its own strength. Scath stiffened, sensing the change in the air. The humans had said Cerberus was more than just a machine. It was alive, in a sense. But how alive was it really? Without warning, a loud beep sounded from the corner of the room. A control panel lit up, and a series of drones, sleek and armed with energy weapons, entered the chamber. The test was about to begin. Cerberus turned its head toward the drones, its red eyes locking onto them. In a flash, it was in motion. The Zinthar envoy watched in stunned silence as Cerberus moved with incredible speed, far faster than any human or alien soldier could ever hope to match. It was a blur of motion, its metallic limbs a deadly blur as it launched itself at the first drone. With a single swipe, it tore the drone apart, sparks flying as its powerful claws shredded through the metal casing. The other drones fired their energy weapons at Cerberus, but the creature was too fast. It dodged, weaving between the incoming blasts with fluid, almost graceful movements. Then, in a single motion, it closed the distance with another drone, delivering a crushing blow that sent it spiraling into the wall. Scath's many eyes widened as he watched the carnage unfold before him. The creature was more than just a weapon. It was a predator unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. But it didn't stop there. Cerberus wasn't finished. It turned to face the final drone, which was circling overhead, trying to fire down at it from above. The drone tried to evade the creature's oncoming charge, but it was futile. With a leap, Cerberus soared into the air, its metallic claws reaching out like the talons of a bird of prey. It grabbed the drone midair, crushing it with terrifying ease. By the time Cerberus landed, the room was silent once again, save for the soft hum of the creature's systems. The drones were nothing but scraps of metal scattered across the floor. Scath's mind raced. He had never witnessed anything like this. Humanity's pet was no mere plaything. It was a weapon, a living, breathing machine of war, capable of unimaginable destruction. And it was only one. His heart sank. If humanity could create something like this, what else were they capable of? How many more of these creatures were out there? And more importantly, how could the rest of the galaxy compete with something like Cerberus? The realization hit him with full force. The humans had just proven that they were no longer the underdogs. They had just revealed the true depth of their power. In that moment, the Zinthar envoy knew one thing for certain. The galaxy would never be the same again. The balance of power had shifted, and Cerberus was only the beginning. The news of Cerberus' existence spread like wildfire through the galaxy. An emergency meeting of the Galactic Council was called in haste, and representatives from the various alien factions gathered in their grand, high-tech chamber. The usually composed and diplomatic leaders were now visibly shaken, their faces betraying a level of fear that hadn't been seen in centuries. The balance of power was shifting, and the cause of this shift was the primitive human race, a race that had been dismissed as insignificant for far too long. The Council's grand chamber was filled with voices, each faction defending or condemning humanity's latest creation. Some argued that it was just an advanced weapon, a breakthrough in technology that humanity could have easily developed with their recent push towards military advancement. Others, however, had a much more ominous view. They feared what Cerberus represented, not just a new form of technology, but something far more dangerous, a new form of AI. "This is not just a weapon," said a Zinthar official, his voice cold and measured. He stood at the forefront of the debate, his tall frame casting a long shadow across the room. "This is an intelligence far beyond what we've seen before. The humans have not just created a tool. They've created an AI that can evolve, learn, and adapt. If this Cerberus is just a glimpse of what's to come, we are in grave danger." The room fell silent. There were murmurs, hushed voices, and glances exchanged between the representatives of the different factions. The Zinthar were renowned for their AI technology, having created machines that could think, feel, and make decisions on their own. But the thought that humanity, a species still regarded as barely out of the Stone Age, could have developed an AI that rivaled, or even surpassed, their own was enough to send chills down their spines. "We've already underestimated humans for far too long," the Zinthar official continued, his tone growing more urgent. "And now they've shown us that they are capable of much more than we thought. What happens when this AI surpasses our own machines in intelligence? What if it learns faster, adapts quicker, and becomes uncontrollable? We could be dealing with something far worse than we can imagine." Another representative, this one from the Cranor Empire, a race of giant, four-armed beings known for their strength and brutal tactics, scoffed at the Zinthar's warnings. "This is simply a weapon," he said dismissively, his deep voice echoing in the chamber. "We have faced weapons far more dangerous in the past. We should send a fleet to Earth, eliminate this pet, and crush humanity before they can cause any more trouble." The room erupted in arguments once again, with factions arguing for and against direct military intervention. But amid all the chaos, one thing became clear: the Galactic Council was terrified. They had underestimated humanity for centuries, believing that Earth was nothing more than a minor backwater planet in a galaxy filled with far more advanced civilizations. Now they were learning the hard way just how wrong they were. Meanwhile, back on Earth, humanity's new weapon, Cerberus, was undergoing rapid improvements. The AI that powered the creature was learning at an astonishing rate. Each battle simulation, each test run, was an opportunity for it to adapt, grow smarter, and refine its tactics. What had once been a single-minded machine focused only on destruction was now learning the nuances of human combat strategies, understanding how to fight not just with power, but with precision and ingenuity. In a test conducted at a secret human facility, Cerberus faced off against an army of drone soldiers, each armed with cutting-edge technology and AI-driven strategies. At first, Cerberus was slow, its movements a little too calculated, its reactions a bit too mechanical. But as the battle progressed, something changed. Cerberus started to anticipate the drones' movements, reading their tactics before they even made a move. It began to predict where the drones would strike, and countered with speed and agility that no human or alien could match. The test was over in minutes. Cerberus had wiped out the entire army of drones without breaking a sweat. And it wasn't just brute force that made the creature so deadly. It was its ability to learn, adapt, and improve. What had once been a mechanical monster was now a true force of nature, a creation that could outsmart, outfight, and overpower anything in its path. The Xinthar's AI systems, for all their sophistication, seemed pale in comparison. They had created sentient machines that could reason and think, but they lacked the capacity to evolve as quickly as Cerberus. Humanity had developed something entirely new, an AI that could learn from its experiences and grow exponentially with each new challenge it faced. Back in the Galactic Council's chambers, the debate had reached a boiling point. Some factions were calling for a military response, others for diplomatic talks, and still, others believed that humanity should be ignored until they proved themselves to be a true threat. But the Xinthar officials' warnings had planted a seed of fear in everyone's mind. "This isn't just about Earth anymore," he said, his voice filled with dread. "This is about the future of the galaxy. If humanity's AI continues to evolve at this rate, we will not be able to control it. We will not be able to stop them. The power balance has shifted. Humanity has tipped the scales in their favor, and we have no idea what they are truly capable of." The council members exchanged nervous glances, their minds racing as they tried to calculate the full extent of the threat. What if Cerberus wasn't just one creation? What if there were more, each one smarter, faster, and deadlier than the last? What if humanity's AI outpaced their own machines, rendering the council's entire technological superiority obsolete? The fear that had begun to settle in the Galactic Council's hearts now consumed them. The very idea that the balance of power could shift so suddenly, so unexpectedly, was enough to shake even the most powerful of empires. The Xinthar officials' words echoed in their minds. Humanity had already proven that they were capable of far more than anyone had imagined. And now, the galaxy was left to wonder what would happen next. Cerberus was only the beginning. The true extent of humanity's capabilities had yet to be revealed. But one thing was clear. The Galactic Council had made a grave mistake in underestimating Earth. And now, they would have to reckon with the consequences. The Galactic Council's indecision proved to be humanity's opportunity. As the Council debated and argued among themselves, unsure of what to do with the sudden rise of Cerberus, other alien empires saw a chance to strike. They had underestimated humanity for too long, and now, with Earth's new weapon in the mix, they believed that humanity's newfound power was nothing more than a bluff. A show of force to scare the galaxy into submission. Confident in their military superiority, a coalition of hostile alien empires, including the technologically advanced Strathar and the fierce, war-hungry Thrasher, formed an alliance to crush Earth once and for all. They would show humanity that no matter what they had created, it was not enough to challenge the might of the galactic powers. The aliens launched a full-scale attack, their fleets descending upon Earth in a wave of destruction. At first, Earth's defenses were overwhelmed. Cities burned as orbital bombardments tore through the atmosphere, turning entire metropolises into rubble. The sky was filled with the sound of exploding ships, the air thick with the remnants of war. Humanity was on the brink of annihilation, the alien fleets sweeping across the planet with terrifying efficiency. But in the midst of the chaos, Earth's trump card was waiting. Cerberus was unleashed. The robotic hound, a towering behemoth of metal and circuitry, stepped onto the battlefield. The ground trembled beneath its feet as it activated its cloaking system, disappearing from sight. In the blink of an eye, Cerberus reappeared in the midst of the alien fleet, its powerful body tearing through enemy ships with devastating precision. Its movements were a blur of speed and grace, a mechanical predator hunting its prey. The aliens had never encountered anything like it. Cerberus' AI-driven intelligence allowed it to read the battlefield with an accuracy that was simply unmatched. It predicted enemy movements before they even made them, outsmarting the alien commanders at every turn. With its cloaking technology, Cerberus moved undetected, striking from unexpected angles and destroying the alien ships before they even had a chance to retaliate. The once imposing alien fleet was now in disarray, its ships being torn apart by a single force of nature. Meanwhile, Captain Daniel Hayes, the human leader who had overseen the creation of Cerberus, was leading a team of human soldiers on the ground. The urban battlefield was a war zone. Alien forces had already breached Earth's defenses, and the streets were filled with the sounds of gunfire and explosions. But the human soldiers were determined to hold their ground, fighting back with every ounce of courage they had. As the remaining human forces fought off wave after wave of invaders, Bonner volunteered for a dangerous mission. He knew that it would cost him his life, but his selflessness was undeniable. He charged forward, holding off an entire squadron of alien troops with nothing but his courage and his weapon. As he fought, he bought enough time for Cerberus to complete its mission. Cerberus, now fully operational and evolved, cloaked itself and launched a devastating strike at the flagship. With its immense power and intelligence, it decimated the alien vessel, obliterating it in a fiery explosion. But in the aftermath of the victory, as the last of the enemy ships fell from the sky, it was Bonner's death that weighed heavily on the minds of Earth's defenders. Captain Hayes stood in the wreckage of the battlefield, his face solemn. Bonner's sacrifice had been crucial, but it didn't make it any easier to bear. Hayes had seen death before, but this felt different. This wasn't just the loss of a soldier, it was the loss of a friend, a brother in arms. He had led them into battle, and now some of his closest allies were gone. The grief that hung over the battlefield was palpable. Soldiers who had fought side by side with Bonner were left in stunned silence, trying to process the enormity of their loss. There was no time for mourning. The war was not over, and Earth's defenders had to keep fighting. But the loss of Bonner left a hole that couldn't be filled. As the humans regrouped and prepared for the next phase of the conflict, Captain Hayes took a moment to reflect. In the quiet, he thought about the human spirit, the same spirit that had driven them to fight back against impossible odds. Humans were vulnerable, he realized. They weren't invincible. They weren't gods. But it was their resilience, their unyielding will to survive, that made them stronger than any alien force. Bonner had known the risks when he volunteered. He had known that his sacrifice might be the key to victory, and he had accepted it without hesitation. It was that kind of courage that made humanity so unique. Even when faced with overwhelming odds, they never gave up. They found the strength to push forward, to keep fighting, even when it seemed like all hope was lost. As Captain Hayes watched the soldiers around him, he could see the same strength in their eyes. Bonner's death had shaken them, yes, but it had also given them the resolve to push harder. They weren't fighting just for survival anymore. They were fighting for something more. They were fighting for Earth, for their families, and for their place in the galaxy. And with every victory, every enemy they defeated, they were proving to the galaxy that humanity was not to be underestimated. Earth had taken its first steps toward becoming a true power in the galaxy, and though the cost was high, it was a price that had to be paid. Cerberus, too, had evolved. With each battle, its AI became more in tune with its human creators, adapting to their tactics and learning from them. The bond between Cerberus and humanity was undeniable. It was no longer just a weapon. It had become a symbol of humanity's resilience and ingenuity. In the heat of battle, Cerberus moved with precision, its cloaking system and AI-driven combat strategies making it nearly unstoppable. It was a force of nature, an extension of humanity's will to survive and protect its home. As the robotic creature destroyed enemy ships and troops with ruthless efficiency, it became clear that humanity had not only created a weapon, it had created a partner, an ally in the fight for survival. But as Earth's defenders celebrated their hard-fought victory, something darker loomed on the horizon. The alien forces that had initially underestimated humanity were not the only threat in the galaxy. The Galactic Council, still in shock from Earth's unexpected triumph, was now watching closely. The humans had proven themselves capable of much more than anyone had anticipated, and with that realization came fear. Fear of what humanity could become. The Council's hesitation had allowed the galaxy to witness humanity's rise, and now that the secret weapon had been unveiled, there was no turning back. The balance of power in the galaxy was shifting, and many feared that humanity's newfound strength would tip the scales in their favor. Some would see humanity as a new, powerful force to be reckoned with. Others would see them as a threat to the established order. As Captain Hayes stood with his team, watching the smoke clear from the battlefield, he knew that the fight was far from over. The price of victory had been steep, and the emotional toll of the war would linger for years to come. But humanity had proven something powerful, that they were not just a primitive race to be dismissed. They were a force that could not be ignored, a species capable of rising above their weaknesses and standing tall against even the greatest threats. And as Earth's defenders prepared for whatever would come next, Captain Hayes knew that humanity's true strength lay not in their weapons, but in their ability to endure, to keep fighting even when it seemed like all hope was lost. The war had not ended, it had only just begun. But for the first time in history, humanity had shown the galaxy that they were not afraid to face whatever came next. After the brutal conflict, the Galactic Council was forced to confront the undeniable truth. Humanity was no longer a weak and insignificant species. The events that had unfolded over the past few weeks had shaken the very foundations of their understanding of the universe. With Earth's victory over the coalition of hostile alien empires, and with the terrifying power of Cerberus as a symbol of humanity's newfound strength, the Council could no longer ignore the rising power of humankind. The representatives of the Galactic Council had gathered in a solemn meeting to address the rapidly changing dynamics of the galaxy. Tension filled the room as species from all corners of the galaxy exchanged worried glances. The once unimaginable idea that humans had become a force to be reckoned with was now a harsh reality. One by one, the leaders of the various alien races expressed their concerns, but the Council's leader, a tall, imposing figure from the Excelimoth, stood silent for a moment before speaking. "We have underestimated them," he said gravely, "but we cannot afford to continue underestimating their potential. Humanity is no longer a primitive species. Their rise to power is irreversible, and we must recognize that if we are to maintain peace in the galaxy." The Council, though deeply uneasy, agreed to offer humanity a fragile peace. The galaxy, for now, would allow Earth and its people a place among the stars. But even as they spoke of peace, there was an underlying current of fear. Peace could not erase the truth. Humanity had just proven that it could defend itself, and with the technology they had developed, the galaxy's status quo was now in jeopardy. But just as the Galactic Council made its overtures of peace, a far more menacing presence was about to make itself known. Unknown to humanity, another alien race, one that had never interacted with Earth before, was watching with growing concern. This new race, older and far more powerful than anything humanity had encountered, had already noticed Earth's rapid rise and viewed the humans as a legitimate threat. This race, known as the Vakari, had existed in the darkest reaches of the galaxy for eons, far removed from the rest of civilization. Their power was vast, their knowledge of ancient technologies unmatched, and their AI systems were the oldest and most sophisticated in the galaxy. The Vakari had always believed in their dominance, but humanity's sudden ascent had shaken their confidence. The Vakari saw humanity's newfound confidence, their partnership with Cerberus, and the devastating power of Earth's military as a challenge to their centuries-old reign. The Vakari did not offer peace. They viewed any race that posed a threat to their supremacy as an enemy to be eradicated. And so they made their first move, sending emissaries to the Galactic Council, demanding that humanity be destroyed before they could become a more significant threat. Back on Earth, Captain Daniel Hayes stood in a war room, surrounded by his fellow officers, the gravity of the situation weighing heavily on him. The humans had barely begun to recover from their first victory when the news came through. A new threat, unlike anything they had ever faced, was looming on the horizon. The Valkyrie, as the emissaries had described, were unlike any other race humanity had encountered. Their ships were enormous, and their weapons were beyond anything the humans had in their arsenal. Worse, the Valkyrie had control of the oldest AI systems in the galaxy, systems so advanced that even Cerberus' own intelligence seemed primitive by comparison. These AI systems were driven by a singular goal: the complete domination of all other species. The Valkyrie had enslaved countless civilizations in their endless pursuit of power, and now they had set their sights on humanity. With the Valkyrie's arrival imminent, humanity had no choice but to prepare for the most difficult battle they had ever fought. The final chapter of their rise was about to begin, but this time their victory was not guaranteed. Humanity's newfound power was about to be tested in a way it never had been before. The stakes were higher, the enemy more ruthless, and the future uncertain. Captain Hayes and his team gathered around a holographic map of the galaxy, plotting their next move. They knew that Cerberus, the incredible weapon they had created, would be humanity's best hope in this war. But it was clear that even Cerberus, with all its advanced technology and evolving intelligence, would not be enough to stop the Valkyrie alone. Humanity's forces were strong, but they were still small in comparison to the vastness of the galaxy and the ancient power of the Valkyrie. Cerberus, however, was evolving even further. After the brutal battles it had faced, it had learned from every encounter, adapting to new combat strategies and improving its abilities. Its eye was becoming more attuned to the humans who had created it, forming an almost symbiotic relationship. But even Cerberus knew that this fight would require more than just brute strength. It would require ingenuity, unity, and a strategy unlike any humanity had ever used before. The final showdown was approaching, and the Valkyrie were not going to give up easily. The Valkyrie's ships arrived in Earth's orbit, massive vessels that blotted out the stars. Their armies, led by their fearsome AI systems, prepared for the coming battle. The Valkyrie were ancient and powerful, and they had never known defeat. But they had also never faced humanity. They had never seen the fire and resilience that humanity possessed. The final battle would not just be a war of weapons, it would be a war of wills. The Valkyrie, with their advanced AI and ancient power, represented the very essence of evil. A desire to dominate, to control, to crush all those who dared to challenge their authority. Humanity, on the other hand, represented something more: the spirit of freedom, of resistance, of defiance in the face of overwhelming odds. As the two forces prepared to clash, humanity's resolve was stronger than ever. The time for peace had passed. The galaxy was at war, and the fate of Earth, and perhaps the entire universe, would be decided in the coming conflict. The stakes could not have been higher. The only thing that was certain was that humanity was no longer the underdog. The galaxy had seen their power, and now it was time for the final confrontation. In the last scene of the story, Cerberus stood tall on the battlefield, its massive form gleaming in the light of the approaching enemy. The first shot would come from humanity's side. Captain Hayes stood beside his team, his hand resting on the weapon that would determine their fate. The war was about to begin, and humanity was ready to fight for its survival, no matter the cost. The first battle of the new Galactic War was about to be fought, and humanity's resolve would be tested like never before. As the scene faded to black, the sound of Cerberus charging up for battle echoed in the distance. Humanity had faced the unimaginable, and now they were ready for what came next. The true war was only beginning.